George Washington. Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Franklin. You know these names. You've known them since you were a child. But here's what nobody tells you. For every name in the history books, there are 100 names that didn't make it in. People who fought harder, sacrificed more, changed America in ways that still shape your life today. And history just forgot them. Some were forgotten because of the color of their skin, some because of their gender, some simply because the spotlight landed on someone standing next to them. Today, we're putting the spotlight back where it belongs. These are 10 forgotten American heroes that history tried to erase. And after this video, you won't forget them. Mary Bowser. If you've never heard this name, you need to. Mary Bowser was born into slavery in Virginia in 1840. She was educated in the North, which itself was extraordinarily rare for a black woman in antebellum America. When the Civil War broke out, she returned to Richmond, Virginia, the heart of the Confederacy, and became the most important Union spy in the entire war. Here's how she did it. A Union sympathizer named Elizabeth Van Lew placed Mary inside the Confederate White House, the official residence of Jefferson Davis himself, President of the Confederacy. Mary worked as a servant, and while she worked, she read every classified document, every battle plan, every dispatch that crossed Jefferson Davis's desk. She had a photographic memory. She remembered everything perfectly, and she passed it directly to Union generals, including Ulysses S. Grant. Jefferson Davis never suspected her, because he never imagined that the woman clearing his table was reading his war plans. Mary Bowser helped the Union win the Civil War. She is almost completely unknown. The full historical record of her work was destroyed, possibly deliberately, and for over a century her story was lost. She was inducted into the U.S. Army Intelligence Hall of Fame in 1995, more than 130 years after the war ended. Claudette Colvin. Ask anyone who refused to give up their bus seat in Montgomery, Alabama, and they'll say Rosa Parks, and Rosa Parks absolutely deserves her place in history. But here is what the textbooks leave out. 9 months before Rosa Parks, a 15-year-old girl named Claudette Colvin did the exact same thing. March 2nd, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. Claudette Colvin refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. She was handcuffed, dragged off the bus, arrested, jailed. At 15 years old, civil rights leaders took notice. They considered building their legal campaign around Claudette's case, but they ultimately decided not to, in part because Claudette was a teenager, in part because she was pregnant at the time, which they feared the press would use against the movement. So history moved on to Rosa Parks. Claudette Colvin spent decades in near-total obscurity, working as a nurse's aide in New York. She said in an interview, "I felt like Claudette Colvin had been dumped on the side of the road." In 2021, 66 years after her arrest, a French court expunged her juvenile record. Her courage was real. Her sacrifice was real. History just chose not to remember her. Alice Ball. In 1915, a 23-year-old black woman became the first person to develop an effective treatment for leprosy. Her name was Alice Ball, and almost no one knows she existed. At a time when leprosy, now known as Hansen's disease, had no real treatment, thousands of patients were forcibly isolated from their families and communities. Some were exiled to remote colonies to die. Alice Ball, a chemistry graduate student at the University of Hawaii, developed what became known as the Ball method, an injectable solution derived from chalmugra oil that actually worked. For the first time, leprosy patients were being successfully treated and released back to their families. Then Alice Ball died. She was 24 years old. 'Cause unknown dot. And here's where the story gets darker. After her death, a male colleague, Arthur Dean, continued using her method. He published research on it. He took full credit. He never mentioned Alice Ball by name. For years, the treatment was called the Dean method. It wasn't until 1922 that another scientist publicly corrected the record and credited Alice Ball for her discovery. Even then, her name faded from history. The University of Hawaii finally honored her with a bronze plaque in 2007, 92 years after she saved thousands of lives. Sybil Ludington, you know Paul Revere. His Midnight Ride is in every American history textbook. Longfellow wrote a poem about him. He's an icon. Here is the truth about Paul Revere's ride. He rode 12 miles. He was captured by the British before finishing. He didn't even complete the mission. Sybil Ludington was 16 years old when she rode 40 miles alone through rain and darkness to alert colonial militiamen of a British attack on Danbury, Connecticut, April 26, 1777. 40 miles. 16 years old. Alone. At night. She succeeded. The militia mobilized. The British were repelled. George Washington personally rode to thank her. And yet, Paul Revere has a famous poem, a statue in Boston, and a place in every textbook. Sybil Ludington has a small statue in a town most people have never visited, and a name most Americans don't recognize. The only difference between their stories is that one of them was a man, Roger Sherman. Here is a name that should be as famous as Jefferson or Franklin, and isn't. Roger Sherman is the only person in American history to sign all 4 of the founding documents of the United States: the Continental Association of 1774, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the United States Constitution. He didn't just sign them, he helped write them. Sherman was a self-educated cobbler who became one of the most important legal minds of the founding era. He proposed the Connecticut Compromise, the agreement that broke the deadlock at the Constitutional Convention and created the two-house Congress that America still uses today. Without Roger Sherman's compromise, the Constitutional Convention might have collapsed. The United States Constitution might never have been ratified. America as we know it might not exist. And yet, ask anyone to name the Founding Fathers, and Roger Sherman almost never comes up. His name isn't on monuments. His face isn't on currency. His story isn't in school textbooks. The man who may have saved the Constitution, forgotten. Elizabeth Jennings Graham, 101 years before Rosa Parks, a black school teacher in New York City. made a stand that changed the law. July 16, 1854. Elizabeth Jennings Graham was running late for church. She hailed a horse-drawn streetcar, the public transit of 1850s New York, and got on. The white driver refused to move the car as long as she was on it. A police officer was called. Elizabeth was forcibly removed. She sued. Her attorney was a young lawyer named Chester Arthur, who would later become the 21st President of the United States. Elizabeth Jennings Graham won her case. The judge ruled that black passengers had the right to ride New York City public transit without discrimination. Her legal victory directly led to the desegregation of New York City's entire streetcar system decades before the rest of the country would even begin having that conversation. She is almost completely unknown today, while Rosa Parks' name is recognized by every American. The woman who set the legal precedent a full century earlier is remembered by almost no one. Bayard Rustin, you've seen the March on Washington, 250,000 people. The Lincoln Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, one of the most powerful moments in American history. Bayard Rustin organized all of it in 8 weeks. Rustin was a logistics genius, the chief architect behind the entire civil rights movement's strategy of nonviolent protest. He had studied Gandhi's methods directly and taught them to Dr. King. He planned the March on Washington with military precision, coordinating transportation for 250,000 people, setting up water stations, first aid posts, portable toilets, sound equipment, all in 8 weeks. It was the largest peaceful political demonstration in American history up to that point, and yet Bayard Rustin was deliberately kept out of the spotlight because he was openly gay. Civil rights leaders feared that his sexuality would be used by opponents to discredit the movement. So Rustin was pushed behind the scenes. He watched the movement he helped build take its bow without him in the frame. President Obama posthumously awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2013, 50 years after the march he made possible. Peter Francisco Dot, if there was ever a real-life superhero in American history, it was Peter Francisco. His origins are a mystery. In 1765, a 5-year-old boy was found abandoned on a dock in Virginia, unable to speak English, with gold buckles on his shoes and lace on his shirt. Nobody knew who he was or where he came from. He was taken in by a local family. When the Revolutionary War broke out, Peter Francisco was 16 years old and 6 feet 6 inches tall, in an era when the average man stood 5'7". He became a one-man army at the Battle of Camden, fighting alone. After his unit retreated, Francisco reportedly killed 11 British soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. At the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, he was bayoneted through the leg and kept fighting. On one occasion, he single-handedly dragged a 1,100-pound cannon to safety to prevent the British from capturing it. George Washington called him one of the most powerful men in the Revolution. Patrick Henry called him a giant among giants. Peter Francisco was celebrated as a hero in his own lifetime, but somewhere along the way, history lost him. His name deserves to be in every classroom in America. Haym Salomon. The American Revolution almost ended, not on a battlefield, but in a bankruptcy office. By the winter of 1777, the Continental Army was starving at Valley Forge. Soldiers were dying of cold and disease. The government had no money. Washington couldn't pay his troops. The entire war effort was on the verge of total financial collapse. A Polish Jewish immigrant named Haym Salomon stepped in. Salomon was a financial broker in Philadelphia. He had connections across Europe and an extraordinary ability to raise money fast. He personally raised and donated the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars in today's money, financing entire military campaigns, personally lending money to members of Congress, and keeping the government solvent when it was weeks from total financial ruin. James Madison, later the fourth president of the United States, wrote that he survived in Philadelphia only because of Haym Salomon's personal financial support. Salomon also worked as a spy behind British lines and helped prisoners of war escape. He died in 1785, broke. The government he had saved never repaid what it owed him. His descendants petitioned Congress for repayment for over 100 years. They were always denied. A small monument to Haym Salomon stands in Chicago. Almost nobody has seen it. Nikola Tesla. Tesla is more well known today than some of the others on this list, but the true depth of what was done to him still shocks people. Nikola Tesla invented the alternating current, electrical system, the technology that powers every home, every building, every device. In the United States today, without Tesla's system, modern civilization, as we know, it does not exist. But Tesla wasn't just an inventor. He conceptualized wireless communication decades before radio was commercialized. He developed early X-ray technology. He designed a system of free wireless electricity that would have transmitted power around the globe at no cost to anyone. That last part is what destroyed him. His financier J.P. Morgan discovered that Tesla's free energy system couldn't be metered, couldn't be charged for, couldn't be monetized. Morgan pulled his funding dot, had Tesla's tower demolished, and used his enormous influence to systematically discredit Tesla and redirect history's credit toward Thomas Edison, Morgan's other investment. Tesla died alone in a New York hotel room in 1943, penniless. His papers were immediately seized by the United States government. The man who literally powered America died with nothing, and for decades, history gave the credit to someone else. A teenage girl who rode 40 miles in the dark, a spy who read war plans while serving dinner, a chemist who cured a disease and was erased, a financier who saved a revolution and died broke, an inventor who powered the world and got nothing. History is not a complete record, it is a selection. And the selection is almost always made by people in power, choosing which stories serve them best. But here's what history can't erase: the impact. Every one of these people changed America, changed your life, in ways that still ripple forward today. They deserved better from history. The least we can do is remember them. I'm Hidden America TV. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe, share it with someone. who needs to see it and hit the bell so you never miss another hidden story. See you in the next one.